should we shut up already about egg prices? The reason I'm asking is not because this is a political channel, but because recently President Trump posted a link on Truth Social for a right-leaning opinion piece written by Charlie Kirk at dailycaller.com. And the article is called "Shut Up About Egg Prices. Trump is Saving Consumers Millions." So I want to talk about this, and then I want to share what it means to all of us and how it might impact how we're investing and how we're planning for retirement. Okay, Charlie lays out basically three arguments for why egg prices, which right now are somewhere between $5 and $7 a dozen nationwide, and there's some places where eggs are $10 a dozen, and restaurants are actually charging an egg surcharge at some places. So it's a big deal. It's something that we're all seeing, and so it's worth talking about. And Charlie lays out three reasons why we should not blame Trump. And the first reason is, one of the big reasons that egg prices have continued to go up is because of bird flu. And unfortunately, millions and millions of chickens have had to be euthanized, have had to be killed in order to stop the spread of the bird flu. Okay, the second reason that Charlie talks about is really what people that voted for Trump and what Trump was running on was not just egg prices, this is Charlie's argument, but inflation in general. And so he talks a little bit about Trump's fight for inflation in general. And then Charlie's biggest point, in my opinion, is his third point, which is what are Trump's existing moves and how is that helping the average American? And Charlie argues that Trump is taking a whole government approach, which includes tax cuts, deregulation, and increasing energy production. So that's Charlie's argument. But what about, first off, should we shut up about egg prices? No, this is America. So if this is your issue, if this is something that bugs you, one of the great things about living in this country, and I've traveled a lot, and so there's pros and cons of every country, but one of the strongest pros of the United States is we have freedom of speech. So if this is something that's important to you, absolutely be vocal about it and don't worry about complaining about it. But what does it mean for our investing? What does it mean as we're looking at retirement? And I'll share with you, retirees have a couple enemies. And one of those enemies is just the pain of loss when the stock market goes down. Just as we retire, as we no longer have new money coming in, the pain of loss increases not just a little bit, but a lot, because we can no longer put new money to work in the stock market from our paycheck that's coming in next month, the month after that. And so all of the money we're going to invest has likely already been invested. So unfortunately, we're at the other end of that curve, putting new money in as the stock market goes down. That's called dollar cost averaging, putting money in over time. But the evil twin to dollar cost averaging is the side that we retirees face if we're not careful, which is sequence of return risk. We risk having the stock market go down at a time when our portfolio value when we first retire is the highest. Not only that, but we risk being a forced seller in a down market. And we become a forced seller if as retirees, if we have to sell stocks in order to fund our living expenses. So fortunately, there's something we can do to protect ourselves from becoming forced sellers in a down market. I'm going to come to that, but I said that retirees have two main enemies, or actually, unfortunately, we have several, but two of the big ones is that sequence of return risk, is becoming a forced seller in a down market. But the second big enemy we have is inflation. And inflation is an enemy because if we're not invested properly, then our purchasing power continues to go down every year. And where you see this a lot is when people do not have enough growth potential in their portfolio to beat inflation over time, to maintain the purchasing power, or if they have a pension coming in or other sources of income that for whatever reason are not adjusted for inflation. And a classic example of that is a private pension. Very, very few, first off, very few people have access to a pension outside of government jobs today. It used to be close to 40% of all private sector workers had some form of pension. This is going back 40, 50 years. But now that number is under 15%. And frankly, I'm surprised it is 15%. Seems to me like it's lower than that, but that's what the stats tell us. So if you have a private pension coming in, it's likely not indexed for inflation. So inflation hurts us in many ways. One of the ways that inflation hurts us is it's a headwind for the companies. It's hard for companies to thrive during high inflation because at some point, and I think we're seeing it now, the consumer says enough is enough. Quit passing on those costs. If you look at, for instance, fast food and how much McDonald's and Wendy's and other fast food places, even higher end fast food, I put Starbucks into that category. Even companies like that had been passing along costs at a rate higher than inflation. But now we're seeing it, we're seeing consumers say, I'm not going to pay these prices anymore. I'm not going to pay higher prices for my cup of coffee. I'm not going to pay $30, $40, $50 to take my family out to McDonald's. And so people have been trading down. Before the pandemic, many of us maybe would go out to eat with our family to a somewhat nice restaurant once a month or whatever. And as expenses went up, then we went to fast casual, but it was still a nicer experience. And then as expenses went up, we traded down again to just fast food restaurants. And as those prices went up, we really traded down to cooking at home, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, Walmart, Target, many retailers are reporting that one of their fastest growing segments in the grocery store industry is what's called RTE, ready to eat. So this is not the military rations, but these are things that are kind of prepackaged that makes it easier for you to prepare a meal at home. And frankly, eating at home is probably healthier and lower cost. But at some point, inflation gets to the point where consumers are not willing to pay it anymore. So what do I think we should do about egg prices? Should we shut up? Heck no, I don't think we should shut up about it. If it's an issue that's important to you, voice your opinion. As I said, this is not a political channel. I'm not saying what's going on politically is right or wrong, but I am saying right now we're facing an inflationary period. And fortunately, recently, the inflation numbers have started to really calm down a little bit. But with the beginning of the tariffs being placed on Canada and Mexico, it's likely that there's going to be additional tailwinds for inflation that's going to make it likely that inflation will go up. So thanks for watching this video. If you like this one, the YouTube algorithm says you'll like this video next. Take a look at it. Let me know if YouTube's right. And thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.